Now pay attention, 007. I want to talk to you about the introduction of the next James Bond. So not necessarily the actor who's going to play him, but how I think we should start the film and how I think Bond will be introduced. I'm going to give you my ideas of the way that I think this should be done, and I'm also going to look at the ways that it has been done in the past for each of the Bond actors. So grab your martini and let's get into it. First of all, we've had several actors play James Bond up to this point. Everybody knows this. And each actor has been introduced in a very different way. So let's just chat through the ways that our actors have brought Bond to life for the first time in each film. Sean Connery was the first actor to portray James Bond in one of the official films, and his introduction is iconic. He is seen off screen. We've got an over-the-shoulder shot of him at the casino table, and then the camera spins round to him. He's lighting a cigarette, and he introduces himself with Bond. James Bond. And it's really, really iconic, and it's just super cool, and it basically personifies his Bond. It's just cold, cool, and very charismatic. And I think considering they didn't know how big this franchise is going to turn out to be, I think it's really, really good as an introduction to the character. And when you've watched all the Bond films back to back, or you've seen some of the newer ones perhaps, to jump back in and see Sean Connery introduce Bond for the first time on the cinema screen is an absolutely iconic, fantastic moment. Now, the second actor to portray James Bond was George Lazenby in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, this is, as you might have known if you've watched my reviews, one of my favourite Bond films. And I think actually his introduction to his Bond character is extremely well done from a cinematic perspective. It's kind of perfect as an introduction to a character, especially that we are bringing in a new actor. We have lots of moody close-ups of him lighting a cigarette. He's driving. We don't quite see his face. We just see his kind of chiseled jawline, and he just looks really, really cool. And then we finally see him as he gets out the car on the beach. And it's just such a cool introduction. You've got the Bond theme in the background, the swagger. It's kind of the Connery introduction ramped up to 11. And for me, it was really cool because this is, when I'm watching it back as kind of a filmmaker, I'm seeing that the producer and the director have kind of decided that they're going to make a thing of it. You know, this is a new James Bond. They're really going to make a thing of it. And they're going to remind people from the very first time we see him that this guy is James Bond. There's no illusion. This isn't a different guy. This is the same James Bond, and he's back. And it works so well for me. I love this introduction scene. The next Bond introduction, we have Roger Moore in Live and Let Die. And in this film, it's very low-key. It's very different. He is basically in bed with a lady, straight from the pre-title sequence. M arrives at his house and has a bit of a chat with him, tells him there's something going on. And the scene then ends with him going to a woman who's hidden in his cupboard, taking her out and using his magnetic watch to undo the zip on the back of her dress. And his delivery and everything is just classic Roger Moore. And the fact that this is his very first appearance as Bond, it just sets the tone massively for how he's introduced. I also really like this one because it doesn't build him up. It's not a case of he's the next Bond. It's just, this is Bond. He's just, he's with a woman. He's doing his thing. They're not making a big cinematic thing about it. They're not trying to explain why this is a different actor again, why we've had Sean Connery, why we've had George Lazenby. This is just Bond, yeah? We don't need to go down that route as far as I'm concerned. And this is perfect. It's just straight on with the story. Let's not make a thing about it. And, for Bond 26, I am going to hint strongly that that's the way that we go with this. The Bond after this is, my favorite Bond is Timothy Dalton. And his reveal is an incredible reveal. We have a big over-the-top scene in Gibraltar. You have lots of guys parachuting out of this Hercules, I think it is. And there's a training exercise going on. It starts to go a little bit wrong. And we see Dalton there. He's revealed as Bond. It's cool. And we're straight into a kind of pre-title sequence action scene. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's a really, really good set piece. I will obviously talk a lot about it when we get to my review. But it's just a lot of fun. The way that the scene ends is fantastic, with him kind of parachuting down and landing on a boat. And, you've got the woman saying, "Oh, I'm just looking for a real man." And then he kind of just drops through the roof, grabs the phone, does a call into base, and then he's like, "Yeah, I'll be back in half an hour, make that 2 hours," or whatever it is. And it's cool. It's like, this is serious. This is an action hero, but he's still very tongue-in-cheek James Bond. And I think it's an introduction that works really, really well. We then move into GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan. And the first time we see him, he is from the back. He's about to jump off the dam. We don't see his face. The first time we actually see his face, he's hanging upside down in the toilets when the guy lowers down his newspaper Brosnan's hanging there upside down. He says, "Oh, sorry, forgot to knock." And it's just a really, really fun moment. And it kind of hints a lot more at the comedy side of stuff. It's very much like, all right, yes, this is James Bond. And I would actually say that probably the first proper look we get at Bond is when he comes down the staircase with the gun, and he's silhouetted until he steps into the light. It's such a nice shot as an introduction to Bond, and I think it's a really, really iconic shot. The final introduction we have to Bond so far is Daniel Craig's introduction at the start of Casino Royale. Now, this went completely different to any of the other Bond films. We didn't have a big pre-title sequence. We get something that's, first of all, it's very noticeable because it's in black and white. He's carrying out his second hit on a guy, and he kind of reminisces and thinks back to his very first kill, which was a really brutal affair, a bathroom fight scene where he basically drowns the guy and then shoots him. And it's a really cold, brutal, very little humor in it, and it just captures his essence perfectly. And I think they did a really good job at perhaps foresighting what Daniel Craig's character of Bond is going to be like. The next thing I'd like to talk about is how I think that we should be introducing the next Bond and how we should kick off the film. Now, there's lots of ways you could do it. Bond films are notable for their pre-title sequences, and I feel like since probably GoldenEye onwards, they've always really tried to ramp up and outdo the previous one with bigger and bigger set pieces. I think No Time to Die had something like 20 minutes of pre-title sequence, which was a bit ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's good. What's there? Lots of action, lots of car stuff, stunts, explosions, drama, story, world building, character development. It was all crammed into such a small period of time. And for me, the very first Bond film I really got into was Tomorrow Never Dies. And for me, that really does have, perhaps for nostalgic reasons, an absolutely incredible opening title sequence. Just, you know, you've got this arms bazaar and there's a missile trade going on, and Bond's there, and he just ruins the plans. He's kind of the fly in the ointment for the bad guys, and it's accompanied by an incredible soundtrack. And so for me, that was what a Bond opening should be. There's always has to be this big set piece. And I actually, as I'm reflecting forwards as to where I would like the next Bond to go, I don't think that we need necessarily to have Bond in the pre-title sequence. Now, if you bear with me, Live and Let Die has a really good short introduction sequence where we're not sure what's going on. There's a funeral procession, an agent gets killed, he gets put into the coffin and then carried off. And for me, this works really, really well because it's setting the story first. It's introducing the story. It's doing some world building. It's doing some scene setting, quite a lot actually in Live and Let Die. Lots of the other Bond films kind of have pre-title sequences that feel like they're just there to wow people, to impress people because they feel like they need to have a pre-title sequence. You need to have a hovercraft chase, you need to have a big ski chase, you need to have whatever. And I don't think that necessarily I would like to see something like that with Bond in. What I would like is something that really tells the story and then save introduction of Bond until after the pre-title sequence. Now, the way that I think that this would do it, and people are probably going to be watching this and they'll completely disagree with me and think, no, I want to have a big car chase, or I want to have a big crazy paragliding fight, or, he's on a jet ski with a machine gun or something like that. But I actually think because we're introducing Bond, regardless of how he's going to be played by whichever actor it is that's cast as him, I think that they would be quite bold and quite brave to start off with a very story-heavy approach. So I really, really like Thunderbirds, the TV show Thunderbirds, and that always worked so well. I always draw parallels between Thunderbirds and James Bond, not because they're big British kind of IPs that come out of the same kind of era, but there's a lot of parallels. And for me, those episodes really worked because kind of for the first 20 minutes or so, you've got, they're trying to transport a big machine somewhere, or they're trying a new kind of drilling machine or whatever it is, and it's going to go wrong. But you've got these big elaborate things, and you watch it go more and more and more wrong, and the characters are in more and more peril, and you think, how are they going to get out of this? And at some point International Rescue and the Thunderbirds are going to come. And for me, the Bond films work best when they're like that, when something's going to go wrong. There's a hijacking, or there's some kind of top secret weapon that's been stolen and Bond has to come to the rescue. I actually think if we have a pre-title sequence that is 5 or 10 minutes long, you open on nighttime, you're not sure what you're looking at, you're not sure whether Bond's going to be there, and you see, like a high-tech ship or a spaceship, you only live twice, or something's going a mission, and it all seems to be going to plan. The stakes are quite high. There's a lot of people tense sitting around kind of monitors watching it, and you're not quite sure what's going on, but the music's ticking over, it's ramping up, and you get the feeling that this isn't going to go according to plan. Something goes wrong, a gunshot goes off, somebody doesn't report for duty, something along those lines. and it just starts to go wrong. The music ramps up. It gets more and more bold. You're sitting there in the cinema and you're thinking, oh no, this is serious. What on earth is going to happen here? The best thing for me would be you forget you're watching a Bond film. You know, you're watching a film, you're invested in these characters that are going through this thing, and you're invested massively in the spectacle of it. I think The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises did this really well with the kind of the plane hijacking and so on. You forget you're watching a Batman film. You're watching this spectacle play out in front of you, and it's like, wow, this is really, really engrossing. And you're not sitting waiting for Batman. You want to see how the bad guys pull off this heist, or how this technology is stolen, or whatever it is. And I think if we go down that route for this Bond film, I want to be massively invested, and then bang, you hit with a theme tune. There's something incredible coming out. I mean, you know, I would love Shirley Bassey or something like this, but I have no idea. It's going to be somebody that's popular and modern. It's going to be Ed Sheeran or something probably. But you have this kind of big theme tune, and then after the credit sequence, you just fade. It's London. The Bond theme kicks in. You've got a DB5 whistling through the streets, growling over the bridges and so on. You've got Bond turn up, and I would just say the first shot we should see is a hat landing onto the coat rack, and the camera pans across, and Bond's there having just thrown the hat. And just some sort of quip. He's entering into the office with Moneypenny there, about to get briefed on his mission. Now, I know that might sound quite flat, perhaps, to some people that want to have a big, over-the-top action scene. But just think about it. It really does just get us from the kind of the messy situation at the end of No Time to Die with our new Bond actor. We don't need to kind of explain what happened previously. This isn't, you know, Marvel. We don't need to say, oh, this is a different universe, or there's a portal over there he's just come through, or no, he's still alive, and this is M from there, and he's the same M as this one. We don't need to do that. This is a new mission. And I think if the new film focuses on something big, something spectacular that we haven't seen before in cinema, something practical that they're filming in camera that's really going to blow our minds. And I think the director that they've picked for this does have a track record of kind of spectacle. You know, he's good at bringing action scenes big and bold, and just that sense of scale and stuff, and bring a lot of weight to action scenes that we don't get from a lot of other directors. So I think the fact that he's been chosen to direct this film is really, really promising. And I actually feel like we might actually get something close to what I'm suggesting. Now, I might be an absolute mile out. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but I do think if we went down that route with this particular director, and we did lean on kind of your classic James Bond music, and just focus massively on the scale of this situation and how serious it is and how epic it is, if we can forget that we're watching a Bond film in the first 10 minutes until we hit with that theme tune and a hint perhaps of the character there, and then we're straight into a briefing with the new Bond, the new Moneypenny, and the new cast. We don't need to be explaining stuff. We just need to crack on. And I think probably the way that I would describe introducing Bond in this film, the only Bond that I think has done it similar would be Lazenby's introduction in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where straight away we hit with, here's Bond, this is the new Bond. And I just think there's nothing more James Bond than an Aston Martin driving around the streets of London, going up to the MI6 building. I just think that would be a perfect start. And I can imagine myself sitting in the cinema after being on the edge of my seat at this opening scene, and then just hearing the Bond theme kick in, and just the car pulling up and him getting out and going into MI6, and the hat landing on the coat rack. That, for me, I think I would be giddy watching this. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. This is something I've been thinking about for a while. I might do a whole video about what I think Bond 26 should do and where it should go. But for now, this is all I wanted to say. There's a lot riding on the next Bond. There's a lot riding on who they cast from. There's a lot riding for me personally on who does the music and so on. But I think the way that we deal with how he's introduced is really, really important, and it's something that everybody will remember going forwards for this next Bond. And however many films he does, we'll look back at this moment that he was introduced. And I would love to look back and think they didn't just try and outdo Daniel Craig with a big over-the-top, running through Africa and then jumping on the back of a speedboat or whatever it is. I would love that they didn't try and make a spectacle of that. Instead, they give us a really solid, memorable story. The capsule in space kind of thing. Something like that everybody remembers and everybody's talking about, and you don't know how Bond's going to get involved, but you can't wait to see him figure this out and go on this mission. And that's where I think we should be going for the next Bond. But I would love to hear your thoughts down below. If you're really interested in my opinion, perhaps you're not, perhaps I've put a lot of people off. You might just want a big, bold pre-title sequence. But if you are interested in my opinion, please do hit that subscribe button. It really, really helps me out. It gives me motivation to make some more of these videos. I'm also going back and reviewing all of the Bond films at the minute, and I'm up to Live and Let Die, which will be coming in a week or two. So yeah, really looking forward to getting that out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. I'm going to be all over the comment section and replying to people. So yeah, just please reach out. Let me know your thoughts. Am I right? Am I wrong? And where would you go? And stay tuned, because of course, James Bond will return.